Okay guys, first question, loads going on, it's a little bit tricky, not a very nice one to start off with. S equals the value of the sum of the 3 dimensions of the package. Well, first thing you need to recognize is you've got 2 boxes on top of each other. So the 3 dimensions you're adding, the 25, the 40, but 2 15s. Okay, so I've drawn that here to show you, 2 15s, which are 30. So to find the S, okay, because obviously it wants us to find out the total cost of the package, we're going to use this formula. 25 add 30 add 40 is going to give you 95. That's your starting point. Now we're going to find out F, value of one of the largest faces. Well, the largest face is going to be 40 by 30. So obviously if you made this error here, you're going to make the same error here. 40 times 30 is 1,200. Then I'm going to put these two answers into this bit. So a fifth times S plus F times 0.2. Again, a little bit tricky, it's really testing your methods, okay? So 1/5, 95 plus the 1,200, and then times by 0.2. So I add that bit together first. That's going to give me 1,295. And then I've written here bus stop. If you've got 1/5 of something, it's easier to just divide the number by 5 if you're trying to find a fifth of a number. So in a bus stop, you could see how many 5s go into that, and then times your answer by 0.02. So 259 times that by 0.02, which is going to give me the answer of £5.18. You can see here where all your marks come from. 1 mark for the S, 1 mark for the F, 1 mark for substituting into the formula, 1 mark then for figuring out 259 times 0.02, your 5th mark for 5.18, okay? If you made the error here with the 15 though, followed it through, you're only going to get 4 marks. Right, for this question here, it wants me to find out where the tree is going to be planted. So the same distance from block A as it is to block 1 to block 2. So that's why I've got this line drawn here, but I'm going to draw it by either putting my point on that corner or that corner. So I'll go for the top right hand corner, and I'm actually going to draw a perpendicular bisector. So to do that, you open it to just past halfway and draw half a circle or half an arc. Then go to the same point on the other one. Okay, and I'm going to draw the same thing. Notice I haven't changed the distance. Okay, now by doing that, by drawing a perpendicular bisector, what I have done is split the distance directly between the two of them. So if I then join up this, it's sometimes called a rugby ball, what you can see is that that is the same line as what I already drew, but you have to have this on there for the marks. The next bit then, it says 80 meters from the top left hand corner. Well, the scale is 1 centimeter equals 20 meters, so I know that for 80 meters it's got to be 4 centimeters. So I'll open that to 4 centimeters, which is what it says on the diagram. Then obviously the arc is going to be 4 centimeters away. Okay, so where will it be? Well, it's got to be on this line. It has to be 4 centimeters away, hence why the tree is there. Okay, not a bad one for 3 marks, and that's quite nice. What is the shortest possible distance between block 2 and block 3? Well, the shortest possible distance is obviously from there to there, which is 5 centimeters, and 5 centimeters is going to give you the answer of 5 times 20, which is 100 meters. Okay, quite a nice question that for the second one on the paper. A lot easier than the first question. All right then, Sam's Garden Centre buys trees to sell. Sam bought 200 trees. Each tree cost £25. 22% were not sold. Sam sold the other trees for 40. How much profit did he make? So we've got quite a bit to do. First, I'm going to start by doing 20 times 200. Use Napier's bones if you have to. If not, 2 times 25 is 50. Put the zeros back in. £5,000 for the trees. 1 mark. Then 22% were not sold. So I've got to find 22% of 200. 10% is obviously 20. 1% is 2, so 2 10%, 2 2%, 44 trees were not sold. So if 44 trees were not sold and we're trying to find profit, we need to obviously find out how many were sold. So I'm going to take away the 44, so that means there were 156 trees sold. Okay, so now to find the profit, I'm going to do 156 times 40. Again, use Napier's bones, 156 times 4, put the 0 back in. 6,240. Hopefully my workings are correct. So if that's if that is how much money I have made through selling them, to find the profit, I've obviously got to subtract the £5,000 which I spent at the beginning. So my profit is £1,240. Okay, so that's your 5th mark there. You're gonna have a mark for the 6,240, 1 mark for showing 156 trees, and obviously and your other 2 marks are for the 5 grand and your attempt to find 22%. Okay. Okay, guys. Tessellate means when you put shapes together, they fit perfectly and there's no angles left. So 3 hexagons will meet at a point. It shows you here that one of the angles in a hexagon is 120. Well, obviously, if 3 of them are going to meet at a point, okay, if 3 of them are going to meet at a point, so ignore the other line, that one there would be 120, that angle there would be 120, 320s would equal 360. That's how you show they tessellate, or you could have just drawn some on there, okay? 3 120s. Okay guys, for this question here, it wants me to find out the total distance of the flight, but once you give your answer in miles, you've got this here, miles per hour, okay, you've got how long it takes, so I'm just going to do some rough workings here, because I think it's a little bit easier to the workings I've already got. If I'm going 90 miles an hour, but I go for 1 hour and 20 minutes, 20 minutes is a third of an hour, so a third of 90 on top of it, a third of 90 miles per hour is obviously going to be 30 miles. So in total, the 90 add the 30 is 120 miles. So I know these are rough workings, but I think this is a little bit easier way to figure it out. And then similarly with this one, if we go 80 miles in an hour, but we go for an hour and 15 minutes, 15 minutes is a quarter. Quarter of 80 is obviously 20. So the 80 add the 20 is 100 miles. So this distance is 100 miles, this distance is 120 miles. If I just show you it a little bit neater, using decimals though, 1.3 is a third, 120 miles. Then the next one is 1.25, because 25 is a quarter, that's 100 miles. So that's the 2 workings I just had. Slightly different way of writing it, maybe the other way was easier. Now, want to find the total journey, I've obviously got to add the 2 together, so 220 miles, okay? Don't forget your 2 bonus marks there for your layout and your workings. Okay, for this question here, it says, on average, a helicopter uses 0.4 gallons of fuel per minute. This is the conversion of gallons to litres. It says, use this information to find out how many litres of fuel the helicopter would be expected to use. So you can't do this unless you know how long it took. So the first thing I'm going to do is find out how long it took. Where did I get the 80 and the 75 from? Well, 80 is 1 hour and 20 minutes, and then the 75 is obviously 1 hour and 15 minutes. Add them together. So that's your first couple of marks, 55 minutes. Then what am I going to do? Well, if I know it's 0.4 gallons used for every minute, I'm going to do 155 times 0.4, which is 62. Again, 4 times 155 in Napier's bones. Then I have to divide by 10 after. Then what am I going to do? If I know I use 62 gallons, I'm going to do 62 times 4.55, because it's 4.55 litres in every single gallon. How are you going to do that? You're going to have to use Napier's bones again. Can't just rock up and get 282.1. Okay, so I've just done a little note here. Please use Napier's bones, guys. Make sure your methods are on point. So you're going to get a mark for your final answer there, a mark for your answer here. That's 3. And you're going to get a mark for using your conversions here and a mark for using your conversion here. Okay, a little bit tricky because your written methods need to be on point, but the actual maths behind it isn't too bad at all. Okay guys, a little bit tricky this because you've got all these different combinations going on. So once you've read it and you've interpreted the information, my advice would be, just look at this bit. How many litres are there in 25 megalitres? So if I focus on megalitres, I know megalitres is by here, and I want to change it to litres. And what it does say is 1 megalitre is exactly the same as 1 million litres. So if I've now got 25 megalitres, it's going to be 25 times, it's the same as 25 million, 25 times 1 million. Well, 25 million is written as like so, 6 zeros, and in standard form, obviously you couldn't stop at the 25, it'd have to be 2.5, which means there is going to be 7 digits after the decimal point, hence why it is 2.5 times 10 to the power of 7 for that first one. Alright guys, for this question it says, which is the best estimate for the volume of water passing through the underground pipes per hour? It tells you here that's 230,000 per day. So we've got to do 230,000 divided by 24. Now it does say a best estimate. So if you think about it, how many 24s will get you to 240? If I call that 240, well that would be obviously 10. So that would be 10,000 if I put the 3 zeros in after. So if it's obviously 230 is going to be slightly less than 240, hence why I've gone with the 9,600, okay? These would all be too big. So just use a bit of logic there. All right, takes a bit of time to get your head around this one. It says that the lake has a surface area of this 4,540,000. So that means the area of it, when you look at the top of it, is going to be that much. It then tells you that the gigaliters, so this is actually the volume. So what you can fit inside this whole lake is 59.7 gigaliters. Calculate an average estimate of the depth. So to find out the volume, you would times the area by how deep it is, and that would give you this answer. So that's why I've written, assume the area of the lake is uniform. Just means assume that it's the same, go all the way through, like a prism. The volume equals the area times by the depth. Well, we know the volume, but this is in gigaliters, this is in meters squared. Gigaliters, meters squared. So we need to change the gigaliters to meters cubed. So then 1 gigaliter, there's 1,000,000 meters cubed. So although I know it's 59.7 here, and then we've got the previous number here of 4,540,000, what I am going to do is just change this to meters cubed. So I've times it by 1,000,000. Okay. What you can do is you can estimate it, because it's an estimate. If you want, you can round this to 60 at the beginning, and if you've got 60 gigaliters, it's exactly the same as 60 million. Okay, 60 million. So 60 and then 1, 2, 3, another 3, 6 zeros after. And then you can similarly with this, you can round this to 500. Okay, I'm going to round it to 5 million. Just make it easier for yourself. So I eventually do that at the bottom here, but if you want to round at the beginning, then please do. That would just be as easy to calculate. But what we do need to find out is what would the depth be? What do I times the area by to get me to the volume of it? Easiest way to do it would just be 6,000 divided by 500. Where does that come from? Well, I've crossed off all the zeros. I've got 1 0 left here. And then this rounded to the 6,000, this rounded to the 500, which I did actually already do above. Okay, eventually your depth of it is going to be 12 meters. Okay, zoomed out for this one. It says which of these 3 colleges has the greatest range of time. So the range is from these end parts. Okay, so we're just looking for the widest, was obviously this first one, but actually wants us to tell or write what it is. That's 55. This is as low as 9. 55 take away 9, 46. Okay, nice one to start on. Right then, when it's box plots and you see that special word on average, you have to assume on average will always be the medians. So which one has the, I think it was greatest it was after, yeah, longest travel times. So that's going to be the median, these are the ones in the middle of the boxes, furthest right. So that's this one here. Okay, and the answer is 39. Next one, which college has the greatest difference between the median and the lower quartile? So that's the biggest gap between there and there, there and there, or there and there. Well, quite clearly it's this one in the middle, that's huge. The gap is from 39 down to 14, so a gap of 25. Okay, quite a nice question so far. Which of the 3 colleges has the greatest number of year 12 students? You don't know, because obviously box and whiskers just show the times, they don't show how many year 12 students there were. So again, not quite a nice one. And then the next one, on another college, Wynne College, there are 240 students in year 12. The interquartile range of these times taken for these students to travel to college is 32 minutes. How many of these students have travel times within this interquartile range? So if you know 240 students are within the interquartile range, the gap between the interquartile range is actually half of the people. Okay, so half of the people, that's why I've gone with 50%. Obviously the interquartile is 1/4 to 3/4, which has to be 50% of the people. So how many of these students are in between there? There's obviously just 120. 75%, so I'm thinking the upper quartile of the year 12 students take less than 55 minutes to travel to the college. Complete the following statements. 25% of the year 12 students at Wynne College take less than. Well, if I know 75%, that is the same as 3/4. it told me the interquartile range was 32. How do you find the interquartile range? It's the 3/4 take away the 1/4. So the gap between 3/4 and 1/4 is 32. It now tells you 3/4 is 55. So I've got to take away the 32 from the 55 to find out what the lower quarter was, which is going to be 23 minutes. If you're struggling, guys, draw a box plot, label your numbers, and I will help you with it for sure. Okay, guys, not a bad one again, multiple choice. Which of the 5 countries has a population density of approximately 100 people per kilometre squared? So if you look here, which ones look like they could be, there's pretty much 100 people per kilometre squared. And as you can see, the difference between Austria of the population and there has been multiplied by 100. So that'll be Austria. The next one, which of these countries have the greatest population density? So that means the most people in a small area. And that would be Great Britain. The area is one of the smallest, okay, minus Austria. But then in terms of the population, it's the second highest, 62 million, okay? So that would be United Kingdom, Great Britain. Which of these countries had a population density that was approximately 4 times the population density of Canada? So first we've got to find out what Canada's is. Okay, if you're dividing with all these zeros, my advice would be just get rid of them all. It's the same as doing 34 divided by 10, which is obviously 3.4. So now 3.4 times approximately 4. Well, that's roughly 3 times 4. So anything between 12 and 16. So what has a population density of anything between 12 and 16? It'd actually be Argentina. If we have a look, if I cross off let's have a little look here. 6 zeros there, and I cross off 6 numbers there. 40 divided by 2, but it'd actually be 2.8, would obviously be pretty much 4 times larger than the population density of Canada. So your answer is actually going to be Argentina. Obviously you need to show 3.4 here and actually work out your population densities, okay? All right then. On this first one, because we know T represents days, and we've got this formula here, or expression rather, then what will the surface area be at the start? Well, at the start, T equals 0. So if T equals 0, anything to the power of 0, obviously 0 over 2, maybe I could write that in, 0 over 2 would go to 0, and anything to the power of 0 is always 1. So 400 plus 1 will give me the answer of 401 centimeters squared. Okay, for this one, it's really testing our how good we are with indices now. So we're going to use the formula above, but we need to substitute into there for T 5 days, 7 days, and then our answer between the two, we obviously take away the difference between the two. So 5 days, we write this first, nice and easy, substitute it in. Now then, it's about remembering our laws of indices. So I'm just going to rewrite this as to the power of 5 outside the bracket, and then to the power of a half, because hopefully you can remember the power of a half is the same as square rooting 4. So the square root of 4 is going to give me 2. So then 2 to the power of 5 is obviously 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which would give me 32. So altogether my answer would be 432. Okay, so the bit we need to remember is that 5 is the same as raising or multiplying 4 to the power of a half by itself 5 times. So similarly, the next one to the power of 7, we're going to rewrite it as 4 to the power of a half, bracket 7. Then hopefully you can remember from the last one, power of a half is the same as square rooting it, so that goes to 2. And then 2 to the power of 7 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, or we could just multiply 32 by 2 and 2 again, which would give me 128. And then add the 128, it gives me 528. So now the question said find the difference between the two. So my difference between the two is actually going to be 96 centimeters squared. So you have 1 mark for 528, 1 mark for 432, 1 mark for your 96 centimeters squared. Pretty easy if you can remember how to deal with fractional indices. All right, we've got our formula here again. It actually wants us to find the least possible value and the greatest possible value for R. So we would have to rearrange this at some point, or maybe I can do it for you now. R is going to equal V divided by I. But we know it's upper and lower bounds, so remember for upper and lower bounds, you always halve what it's been rounded to, and that's what you add and subtract on. So half of 10 is 5 volts, half of 0.1 is 0.05 amps, and then to find my upper and lower bounds, these are the numbers I need to add and subtract on. So for the volt max, I've added on the 5, so my max is 285. I take off the 5 for my minimum, so that's 275. Okay, that's going to obviously get you marks. Same for the I, which is the amps. So I'm going to add on 0.05 for my max, so that gives me 0.25, and then I'm going to take off the 0.05 to give me 0.15. Okay, so that's obviously picking up quite a bit of marks just for doing that. Now, that's 3 of your marks. As we've already said here, what I need to do is divide, or rearrange it to divide, but I did do that at the top. But be really careful now. To find the least possible value and the greatest possible value, you're not going to be dividing by the same. You've got to use the opposites. So to find the least possible value, or the minimum value, I need to use the minimum in terms of the volts divided by the maximum amps. So the minimum volts was 275 divided by 0.25. Okay, and if you're dividing by 0.25, it's exactly the same as multiplying a number by 4, because 0.25 will fit into 1 4 times. Okay, so really testing your written skills again, guys. But what I've gone on to do down here instead was just times it by 100, and I found that a little bit easier. Whichever way you do it, the answer is going to be 1,100. All right, but really, really tricky. I would just multiply that by 4. Okay, as I just said, 0.25 fits into 1 4 times. So if I've divided the minimum by the maximum, I've now got to divide the maximum up here by the minimum. So the maximum I had was 285. The minimum I have was 0.15. That's a little bit trickier because 0.15 doesn't fit into 1. So I'm going to times them both by 100, which makes it 15. And then obviously 28,500. I've got to see how many 15s go into that number. So I've made a little note here saying you must use your bus stop. You're going to have to, guys, all right? I'm not going to spend time showing you it, but you're going to have to use your bus stop on both of these, or obviously Napier's bones. How many 15s go into that number? 1,900. So your least possible value is 1,100, and your greatest possible value is 1,900, okay? Pretty tricky for 6 marks, mainly because it really tests your written skills, okay? And then your understanding here. Obviously, if you've divided the max by the max and the min by the min, you're not going to get any more marks apart from the first 3. Okay, bit of a nasty one on a non-calculated paper, but let's get cracking. If this is the bird's eye view, we know this is the base, and that bit there before I drew on it is, if you're looking directly down, that obviously links up with this bit here. So, how do we know it's 3D Pythag? Then, well, if we need to find the length of AE, which is from here to here, we know that down there and across here is going to make a right angle triangle. I don't have enough information yet, so I need to start by finding this bit, and once I've found that bit, I can use that to find this bit in my third form. So using the bird's eye view, from A to O is obviously the same as A to O. So that's about it. I know this bit's 100, I know this bit's 80 because all of it's 160. So I actually just use Pythag here to find out x. Now we're taking away because we have the hypotenuse, so 100 squared is going to give me 10,000, and then 80 squared is going to give me 6,400. The square root of that then, after I've taken them away, so I take them away is 3,600. So square root of that, well, if the 2 zeros weren't there, square root of 36 is 6. The square root of 3,600 is obviously 60. Okay, so that's quite nice. So if this bit here is 60, which is obviously this bit here, which is from A to the center, now we know that bit's 60. We know this bit here is 60. So now it's 3D Pythag again to find out the hypotenuse. So that's why I've redrawn this. How am I going to do that? Well, 60 squared, 110 squared. So 110, so 11 times 11 is 121, 2 zeros. 6 times 6 is 36, 2 zeros. Add the two together, 15,700. And then obviously you've got to square root your answer to find out what the hypotenuse was. But why is it given in? Why have you left it as it is? Because it says give your answer in third form. You do not need to simplify your answer. Obviously, if you had to simplify it, we would, but because we don't, we can leave it as 15,700 with the square root over the top of it. Okay, so not a bad one for 4 marks, but a little bit harsh because obviously it's on a non-calculator paper. Okay guys, I've had to improvise because it wasn't printed out for some strange reason. So what I've done is I've split my graph up into, I'm hoping you know this is trapezium rule. So I split it up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different shapes. Now you can use trapezium rule, or you can just use your understanding of area. So this here is a triangle. The size of this triangle is 2 across, 2 up. So it's going to be 2 times 2, and then you halve it. So the area of shape 1 is going to be 2. Okay. Then all of these are trapeziums. So you can get, like I said, you can use trapezium rule, but I'm just going to use my understanding of how to find the area of trapezium. So this bit from here to here is 2, from here to here is 4. So I'm going to do the 2 add the 4, which gives me 6. 6 times the height, well, the height is obviously 2, and then I halve it. 6 times 2 is 12, half of 12 is 6. That's the area of that one, because the area of a trapezium is these two added, times by the height, and then halve it. So for shape 3, it's going to be this. So it's the 4 added to the 4.4, which is 8.4. 8.4 times 2, because from there to there is 2. And then I halve it. So 8.4 obviously doubled. Is going to give me 16.4, but then 16.8, but I halve it again, takes me back to 8.4. Okay, that's the first 3. I'll now do shape 4. So shape 4 up here, zoom out a bit. Shape 4 up here is going to be this 4.4 added to 4, which is 8.4 again. 8.4 times 2, because that's the height of it, but then I've obviously got to halve it. It's going to take me back to 8.4. Shape 5. So this is a bit long-winded, but guaranteed to get the right answer. 4 add 2.6 is 6.6. 6.6 times 2, then I halve it, takes me back to 6.6. And the last one's a triangle. 2.6 times by 2, then I halve it. 2.6 times by 2 is going to give me 5.2, but then takes me back to 2.6. Now what do I do with all these answers here? Add them up. Okay, so if I add all of them up, hopefully we will get our final answer of what is underneath. So 2 add 6 is 8. 8 add 8.4 is going to give me 16.4. Then I'm going to add another 8.4, 6.6. So 16.4, add the 8.4, add the 6.6, and then add the 2.6. Should eventually take me to, so 6 at 0.6 makes this 9, makes this 17. So 17 add 9 is 26. And then when I add the rest, I should end up with 34 millimeters squared. Okay, but this here is only giving me the area, so I need to find the volume. So I need to times for the volume by the depth of 3, so that gives me 102. But if you look at a graph, that is only half of the pendant, and I need to then double this answer for the other half. So it's going to give me the answer of 204 millimeters cubed. Okay, quite a difficult question to get the full whack there. Okay, luckily this time I do have all the information. I know that last month each pendant, triangle, circle, rectangle, trapezium, this was the amount made. Now if it's a stratified sample, it's 30 of 240. So I'm going to write this as a fraction and then simplify it to find out how many reject. So 30 out of 240 simplified is 1/8. So we need 1/8 of each shape. So 1/8 of each of these numbers here. To find an eighth is really easy. It's just divide by 8. So I'm going to start by finding 1/8 of 52, which is 6.5. Again, use a bus stop if you have to. I'm going to do 1/8 of 96. That's nice. That's 12. I'm going to do 1/8 of 30, which is 3 6/8, or 3.75. 3 3/4. And then 1/8 is 62, which is 7 6/8, which is also known as 7 3/4. Okay, I'm then going to write them below, but be really, really careful. The trapezium and the rectangle, because they're both really, really close to full pendants, I'm going to round both of these up to 4 and 8. 4 and 8. That's where that's come from. The circle was nice, that was exact. But then remember, you can only test 30. So because this was 6.5, it was slightly lower. If I check with the 12, the 4 and the 8, this adds up to 24. So I couldn't round this up to 7 because that would take me up to 31. So I keep the triangle as 6. Okay. So 1 mark for your 8th, 1 mark, 2 marks for all of your workings here. Your final mark for getting the correct numbers in there. Okay, for this question here, it tells you these 5 metal cylinders are equivalent to all of this sphere. So to make these 5 cylinders, I've got to melt this sphere. And the only way I can find out the radius of these cylinders is if I know the volume of the cylinders. And the only way I can find out the volume of the cylinders is if I know how much I melted to start with. So my starting point is to find the volume of this sphere. That's given to you at the beginning of the paper. Now, I'm going to keep it in terms of pi. So 4/3 pi times r cubed. R is actually 30, so I need to do 30 cubed. 30 cubed is obviously 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. So 4/3 times pi times 27, but then don't forget your 3 zeros. Clearly 1 0 was forgotten here earlier. If I simplify that then, you could divide it by 3 and then times by 4, or you could times 27 by 4, then divide by 3, doesn't really matter, but that would simplify to that number there, which is 36,000 pi. Okay, again, I haven't times by the pi, so I know now that this is the volume of my sphere. Well, to find out the volume of one cylinder, the 5 of them combined would be the answer I just had. So to find out 1, I've got to divide by 5. Again, use a bus stop if you have to, but 3, well, you're going to have to. 36,000 divided by 5 is 7,200. So that is the volume of one sphere. 7,200 pi, because we obviously haven't times by the pi. And then how would I have found the volume of one of those cylinders? Well, I would have done the area of the circle times by the depth of it, because it's a prism. So you would have to find the area of this circle at the top times by 40. How do you find the area of a circle? Well, it's pi r squared. So what I do end up with now is quite a nice equation. So if I've got 7,200 pi is equal to the area of a circle times by 40, there's a few different ways I could do it. What I've done here is I've just cancelled out the 40. I've divided by 40, which meant I could just make this slightly simpler over here, which will simplify it to 180 pi. So I know the area of one of my cylinders, faces up here, has got to equal 180 pi. Well, how would you find the area of that circle? Well, it's pi r squared. So pi r squared has got to equal 180 pi. And then it's just a nice simple rearrangement. Well, I divide by pi, which cancels out pi on both sides. I'm left with r squared equals 180. So the square root of 180 can then be simplified to the square root of 9 and the square root of 20, because 9 times 20 is 180, and hopefully you know that that is going to simplify to 3. Then I'm going to break up 20, and eventually, when you keep breaking up the numbers in surd form, you are left with 6 root power of 5. Okay, in the most simplest form. 6 marks available there, guys, so you're going to get at least 1 mark for calculating the volume of the sphere. You then get a mark for trying to find the, or trying to make it all equivalent to the area. Okay, if you divide by 5 as well, there's a mark there, so that's your 3 marks. And then your last, after here, getting it to your circular area, your last 3 marks are for your rearrangement of the radius. Noticing pi cancels out, and obviously simplifying 6 root 5. Okay, a lot of words here, but I'm hoping if you've done your revision, you've noticed that if we want to just write this as a fraction, it is just our algebraic way of writing it as a fraction. So there is a lot of waffle here, but I reckon a lot of us are going to notice straight away this is just writing it simple because of the recurring. So we're going to make x equal to 0.083333. Now we've got to make the numbers after the decimal point the same. So if I times it by 10, I've got 83333. So that's not going to be enough. So I times it by 10 again. So 100x is going to be equal to 8.3333. So now that all three's after, we've got something to work with. If I times it by 10 again, so 1000x is going to be equal to 83.333. What you notice now is I've made the numbers after decimal point the same. So now I've made the numbers after decimal point the same, I can subtract these two, which cancels out all of those threes. So 1000 take away 100, 83 take away 8. That leaves me with 900x, 1000 take away 100, is equal to 75. 83 take away 8. Now to rearrange it to write it as a fraction, we divide by 900 to get x on its own. That leaves me with 75 over 900, but I now need to simplify it because the question at the top said simplest form. So divide by 5 makes it 15 over 180. I could then divide by 5 again, which gives me 3 over 36. And then if I divide by 3, it gives me 1/12 in its simplest form. Okay, quite a nice one for 3 marks. Now we will need a bit of understanding to help us with the next question. What we know is that the area of the sector, so our picture here, is equal to 1/12. Okay, that's what we've just found out. And it's now saying find the area, calculate the area to be painted, give your answer in your simplest form in terms of pi. So to find the area of just that sector, we know we need to find the area of a circle, and the area of a circle is pi times radius squared. Where did the 120 come from? Well, the 120 has come from the diagram. As you can see, the radius is 120. So pi times 120, 12 times 12 is 144, 2 zeros in after. Got to do pi times 144, 14,400. Which I can just rewrite simply as 14,400 pi, because it tells me it's got to be written in terms of pi. But because we know that we only want 1/12 of it, which is what we just found in the previous part, we got to find 1/12 of this. So I divide this number here by 12, I'm hoping you know would give me 12. So don't forget the 2 zeros after, which is 1,200 pi. Quite a nice question for 2 marks. Okay, so bit of an ugly one to finish on. What we know from the question is all of this from here to here, all the way around, is equal to 200 meters. Okay, so we want to find out what this angle is. We want to prove what it is using the answer below. But before we worry about that, let's find out how big this is. Well, if all of it's 200, this bit here has to be 110 meters. Okay, so that's the first thing I've done in my workings, take that away. Now, what I do know is that if this was a full circle, I would have to use, because this is the arc, I would have to do pi times diameter. And if this was a circle, if the radius is 36, the diameter is actually going to be 72 meters. So if I wanted to find the distance around a full circle, I would do pi times 72, which is known as 72 pi. But I don't actually need 72 pi, because that's the full circle. I only need 72 pi out of the, if 72 pi is the full circle, I only need 110 meters of it. So let's have a look how I've just started to lay that out. So that's the first bit I've done there. 110 meters is the arc length. The full circle would be 72 pi. So to find out the angle, what I know is I only need 110 out of the 72. And then once I've done 110 out of 72, I would then times it by 360 degrees, because that's how much I need to split it up. So now from this point onwards, it's all about your ability to simplify it. So all I've done is I've noticed that if I'm going to multiply 110 by 360, then divide it by 72, it's easier to just, or it's equivalent to just divide in the 360 by the 72 now. Okay, so what I've done is divided the 360 by the 72. I've done that here. I've made a note up there that I know 72 goes in 365 times. So I just tried to make it simpler for myself. You could do 110 times 360, give you a really large number, then you'd have to divide by 72, which is fine eventually. But whichever way you do it, okay, what I notice is that if 360 divided by 72 is 5, I'm left with 110 pi over times by 5. And if I times 110 by 5, that would show and prove that my answer here is 550 pi. Okay, so a little bit tricky. 1 mark for 110, 1 mark for trying to find the circumference of a circle and noticing it's 72 pi. The next part is noticing you only need 110 out of that 72. And then times in by 360. So that's going to get you 3 marks. And then your 4th mark is for all about proving it at the end.